held to remediate outstanding concerns identified in reports presented. Number 2, a workshop of the New Haven BoA Education Committee to discuss potential agenda topics for year 2026. Per order, Honorable Gary B. Hogan, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the Office of Legislative Services, City Hall, 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, Connecticut, 06511. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7651 for a voice or 203-946-8582 for TTY-TTD. Public comment and testimony may also be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. My name is Gary Hogan. I represent Ward 28. I am the chair, and starting to my right, if the alders would introduce themselves.
Sarah Miller, Ward 14. Carolyn Cumbie-Smith, Ward 9.
Frank Redenti, Ward 15, Vice Chair.
Elias Theodore, Ward 1.
Christine Kim, Ward 7.
And in our audience, we have Alder Moore joining us. Calling the first item, LM 2026-0052, order of the New Haven Board of Alders authorizing the New Haven Board of Education to enter an agreement with Trifecta Ecosystems. Is there anyone here to present? Please identify yourself and your address clearly for the record.
Good evening, Dr. Paul White, 170 Osborne Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
Alders, if you haven't had the packages, the packet like that looks like.
So the Trifecta shipping container it's already been built at high school and community. It's an ongoing project where the students will be growing mushrooms. They've already started it with. Eventually they will sell these to vendors, hopefully the local restaurants, as well as farmers markets. And we just want to continue this project. The way it happened was the school received a grant to build it. They went through the steps to do that, but they were going through some of the state processes and didn't realize that certain things had to come before the board because it crossed over fiscal years. And so that's what we're here to correct now.
Just a couple questions. You already have the container in place.
Yes.
You already have a contract with Trifecta Ecosystems.
Yes.
And the funding has already been allotted to you. You just need to
follow the procedure so that we get the rest of the reimbursement from the state.
One more question. The contract amount was for $250,000, but you're only spending $245,000. You plan on using the other $4,000?
I don't know for sure. I think it was just for the installation. Anything else would be used for, if we are able to use it, that's would be the state allowing it. It would be for us to buy more mushrooms.
Okay. Any questions of the committee?
Just a comment. Thank you for coming. I just want to say I've spoken with the teachers, and it seems like a great project with a lot of enthusiasm and energy behind it. So I'm happy to support it.
I had some of the first batch of the blue oyster mushrooms, so I can testify they are good.
And for the record, that was Alder Sarah Miller that was bringing the comment. Any other questions of the committee? Thank you, Dr. White.
Thank you. So of course the ask is that this be discharged to the full board.
That is the recommendation that we discharge this to the full board. We will not be taking any action on it. It will go before the full board for its April 6th meeting. Moving on to the following workshop items. Dr. White and his team will be coming back in a moment. You have a presentation in front of you. This workshop is for the New Haven Board of Aldermen with the New Haven Public School System to discuss the management, maintenance, and current condition of all school facilities. Can the speakers and presenters please identify themselves with their name and address clearly for the records?
Good evening, Dr. Madeline Negron, 70 Cabot Street, New Haven, Connecticut.
Lisa Hopkins, Executive Director of Facilities. My address is 33 Dixwell, 248 New Haven, Connecticut.
Hey, good evening. Jeff Standrovich. I am Project Manager for New Haven Public Schools Facilities. I am 618 Route 80, Guilford, Connecticut.
And good evening again, Dr. Paul White, Chief of School Operations, 170 Osborne Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
So yours.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you tonight. As you see, I am here accompanied by Dr. White, who is our Chief of School Operations. We're also joined today by two members of our facilities management contractor, Ms. Lisa Hopkins and Mr. Jeff Standowitz. Thank you. I always butcher the last name. Today again, we're going to be honing in for your requests on a conversation related to facilities of the New Haven Public Schools. As we always begin, I just want to ground us on our path to excellence, right? It is our roadmap, which we created together. And as part of that roadmap, priorities that we have been working on these last 2 years related to teaching and learning, family, community partnerships, culture and climate, and operational efficiencies. Just want to sort of like lay out the outline of what we will be presenting to you today before I turn it over to we are going to give you and attempt to give you a way to understand the very complex, I'm going to use the word complex, arrangement that we have to facilities management. But we're hoping that through this org chart that we're going to share with you, that it'll give you an opportunity to understand how it is that our school facilities are currently being managed. We're also going to do an overview of the long-range facilities plan study that was shared with you previously, that extensive 518-page document. And again, that was a study that was conducted back in 2021-2022 academic year, finalized sometime in the 2023 year, and we're going to lift some of the recommendations and strategies that pertain to the work that is happening today. We are then going to discuss a little bit about our overall challenge, followed by giving you an overview of our work order process, and last but not least, give you insight as to the way that we are approaching or plan to move from a reactive mode to a more preventative type of an effect. And with that, I am now going to turn it over to Dr. White.
Good evening. As we look at the facilities management chart, wanted to highlight how we are set up as a district, where part of our district is managed through the vendor ABM, who is here with us today, and some of our units are in-house. So facilities composes of our trades, which we have 11 of, our building managers, our assistant building managers, truck drivers, and floaters who cover our bills. Those are the main custodial force that takes care of our buildings the day-to-day, and then our trades does the work of the carpentry, fixing the bathroom doors, fixing the locks, plumbing, as we have a team working at Wexford Grant right now as there's an issue there. So they get deployed. Additionally, through ABM, who manages some of that staff and division, we have 3 of our schools, or 3 largest schools are managed through ABM in terms of the building manager, assistant building managers. And then additionally, they provide support as environmental, supervision of custodial, project management, and other services. And all of this is bolstered by support of additionally on-call vendors, because work that can't be done by our tradespeople, then certain things have to go out there. Our trades will go and look at something, see what can be done, if it's something they can do, or if this needs to be called out to our HVAC vendors, and then our on-call people come. So that's a frame of what facilities management looks like. Now, going into that very, very large document that you received, the facility studies, it was a long-range plan to come up with how do we care for our buildings. As you know, we've been rebuilding buildings since the late 90s, and so our buildings have gone very old. We're now 27 years into this process, and any of us as homeowners know over those 27 years, a lot of work has to be done. And as we've also known that a lot of the maintenance for our buildings weren't necessarily fully factored into the design when the buildings were rebuilt. Of course, we have beautiful buildings, but we have a lot of work to bring them up and running. And as the study showed, so I keep switching back, it was done through a data-driven research doc. They looked at our historical enrollment, our trends, the health of building, looking at the roofs, the windows, the infrastructure, so HVAC systems, the chillers, all of those things, and also what we need for academic needs. And then providing a roadmap for what we could do, recognizing the budgetary realities. We know we have a very small budget, and also prioritizing what we need to do, because of course, first and foremost, we want safe buildings for students and staff to work in, as well as meeting our obligations. And so again, through all of this, it was to determine what we need in our buildings. And again, from this, the study began as the state of affairs, include gathering the baseline data, understanding current conditions, and predictive models for what should happen in the future. The audit was done, boots on the ground. They came in, walked the facilities, went in, looked at systems, looked at the historical information as to the age of our roofs, when things were done, and also what our systems are and what the sustainability of those systems and what's the capacity to go forward. All of those things were used to come together for the results of the study. And the assessment found that 12 of our buildings are in poor condition, 31 are in fair condition, and 2 are good, indicating 12 need immediate, ongoing, critical systems. So as you know, we've had to, at times, rent chillers for some of our buildings. We've had to relocate classrooms, do different things to make sure the buildings work. At that time, we also the process of, we had to close West Rock and Quinnipiac schools because their HVAC systems were to such a point that they couldn't be repaired, as well as we were in the midst of the pandemic, which didn't allow for the type of HVAC system that was required at that time, getting the teams in. Those 2 schools couldn't do that. And then, so immediate ongoing, so we're constantly doing work in these buildings, whether it's patching roofs, repairing boilers, repairing chillers, trying to keep these buildings going. Then next week, 31 of our buildings need work. And then 2 of our buildings just need their routine maintenance to keep up. Obviously, one of those buildings being Obama as our last building opened. And we hope that it stays in that condition as we always want to make sure that we are able to maintain what we have. We've learned lessons from that, so there's a lot of work that has to be done. Overall, one of the challenges, this is another representation of what this looks across schools, the amenities area that talks about our sidewalks, playgrounds, athletic fields. That's where the other half of the second graph, pie chart shows. So from this study, the goals were to develop a sustainable plan that addresses efficient uses of our buildings, facility investment, and also making sure as we do this, we're meeting the changing needs. One of our big investments has been in creating pathways. And so we've had to do a lot of work to make sure that our buildings are able to do the work within the pathways. Hill House has become outfitted in a fantastic way for the manufacturing. Right now, we're working with Korea High School on the revamp of their program. Betsy Ross has transitioned and is still in the midst of their MSAT of work for what they're doing in the future. So those are some of the elements that are going on. Another goal was right-sizing and reposition schools to guide funding resources and make deliberate high return on investment and provide equal access to resources. So it was a pain point last year to close Brennan and consolidate Wexford, Blanton, Lincoln, Bassett, but these things had to be done, one based on what the enrollment looked like, and also the opportunity to create some new programming as well. We don't want to have to close those, but we also have to with what comes in with our enrollment, as well as how we serve the communities across the city. And then leveraging this master plan to develop our actions. So again, well, in the midst of working on a plan, first we did some consolidation of pre-K-8s that already had. This goes back to the strategies that were listed from when this report came out 3 years ago. We're in the midst of developing what our capital investment strategies are. Again, ability to fund, repair, and maintain facilities. That's the key thing. Looking at how we give our capital to the things that are happening. And a lot of it, of course, ends up at this point being on the reactive. Boiler goes out, we have to do work right then to the fire pump at a school goes out and we find out that it's installed backwards and things like that we've had to address and work on. Of course, as I talked previously about some of the programming that we're trying to do so that we can have broader use across the school so that again, alleviate overcrowding at Cross and Hill House. And again, improve on quality of the magnet facilities and offerings so that we can continue to attract students to our magnet schools so that we remain in compliance with the magnet target numbers, as well as provide a well-rounded education for all of our students. So as we talk about some of the work that has to be done, one of the things is the challenge in trying to fund all of this work. On average, it's recommended that we should be spending between $3 to $4.50 per square foot. New Haven at this time, we are spending approximately $1.70 per square foot to do the work. So we have approximately $1.30 to $2.80 per square foot shortage, as we see what those numbers look like in what we're trying to do. And then also have to take into account the compounded effect of this over the years that we've been chasing the work that has to happen in our buildings. So we have to, this is what we work with, and from here, we have to look at what we're trying to do. This is the challenge we face is trying to meet the goals and follow the strategies that came to us through the study. And then now this is where we are with what some of our funding challenges are. And now I'd like to move a little into how we do the day-to-day work, what the building management looks like, how we go about that. We currently use the FMX system. We previously used School Dude. School Dude ended its usage and we moved on and we're using FMX, which was the cheapest system and was, to my understanding, hastily implemented. There are some great things about it that were improvements over School Dude, being that besides building managers, building admin could put in tickets as well as teachers, and they could check and track what's happening. The benefits of this helps create a consistent list of the issues in our schools, as well as it's easy for the work orders to be entered so that anyone could do it. It's pretty much putting in what the issue is, what they know about it, and then also multiple people can be tagged in to see a work order. Some of the challenges to this system is not able to see all the notes and some confusion in the dynamics of the system. One of the biggest challenges would be, for example, if I determine I can't do the work, I need Aldo Rodente to do it. I've passed the ticket over to him, but it now looks like the ticket is closed. Now this person at the school is like, wait a second, that's not fixed. So it creates some confusions in the systems and things that we've had to create redundancies for ways to show back that the ticket is there and what's happening so that we get, one, so that the person knows it's still being worked on, and two, not in the sense that we're just closing tickets to close tickets, because that doesn't help any of the things we're trying to do. But as we continue the building maintenance work, so that's the framing of how we go about that. And then the system of how we do that is the assignments. Once it's submitted, try to get clarity on the location description. Facility staff does an initial review and prioritize by the defined criteria. Then there's the verification. The trades people go out, verify the issue, and then we adjust based on this. This is, okay, this is a lot. We just need to get it rekeyed. We have the equipment, or we have to order a part, or this is something we need Cohen's key to do the work, or it's a door that needs to be replaced. And then we have some challenges along lead time. One of the challenges we face is that each of our buildings was built as a palace unto itself. So there's a lot of things that are unique to each of our buildings. So that's one of the challenges we're working through, and where possible doing things to create some standardizations. For example, something like the exit signs. Let's see if we had one here, like the fire exit signs. We're trying to standardize those so that, one, we're able to buy more efficiently and replace them. And so there'll be a time where we'll have mismatching those in some of our buildings, but it's better that we have them working in our buildings than waiting an additional 6 weeks to get the acrylic one, because that was the one that was installed in that building. And then again, elevating condition, trying to make sure we fix things before they get worse. We're doing a lot of reactive, but also it's trying to fix things before they get worse, because anything left on its own eventually will get worse. And the priority, of course, is what's the students and staff. Exterior doors, broken locks, hanging emergency signs, because other thing we talk about, the emergency signs, as a young man, I used to like to tap them, as many of our young students do. They tap them and sometimes bring them down with them. So those are the kinds of challenges we have to face. Or what's happening at West LeGrand as we speak. Student ended up pulling down something and took a sprinkler head down. So there's an inch of water across multiple rooms being cleaned up. Those are things that are unforeseen, but again, we have to do the work as quickly as possible so that we don't have worse conditions. And then the second priority is impact on instruction. Equipment in our rooms, room temps, all of those things. And then, of course, compliance, and followed by, if we don't fix it, it will get worse and be a more expensive repair. One of the things we're currently working on right now that's helping to give a real-time, true, consolidated list of what's happening in the schools. We're going through school inspections. This is with the Office of Emergency Management, the fire department, the police department, our security, as well as PMA, which is the risk management group for the city. And we walk the buildings, check for hazards, testing the doors, making sure doors are working and operational. Fire doors, make sure that they close properly. Make sure storages are proper, that we're not storing things in electrical closets, and any other potential risks. After each walk, a priority list from each of the departments go into. I did miss the health department also joined us. And then the work is split up immediately into what work can be done by our trades, what has to go out to on-call vendors. And this is where one of the big things that have been coming in is the lead time on things. Like, we have doors we're repairing at Hill House, and it's been a 12-week lead to get these doors. So again, those are some of the challenges we face as we go into work, but we try to meet any challenge we can. And then overall, we want to get to the point where we move from reactive to preventative maintenance. So the work that's being done now with creating functional inspections, as well as creating a schedule for routine maintenance, assessing all of our assets, the chillers, the boilers, electrical fire panel, roofs, making sure all of these things, where they are and how they're functioning. And then, of course, creating a tiered list on the urgency of what needs to be repaired. Continue our scheduled inspections so that they are done in a timely fashion. We look to expand the trade staff so that, again, more issues can be done in a timely fashion. As you saw, we have currently approximately 11 tradespeople, and that's across all 40 schools. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we need more people. Also want to get back to a predictable schedule. Previously, there was a time, as it's been explained to me, that, okay, tomorrow, the 26th, the carpenters will work at Clinton Avenue School. They will go through all of the work orders and take care of all of the additional things that happen and move through. They would know what day this being come to take care of work in that building and try and knock out everything. Besides, obviously, the emergency things would have already been done, but addressing the smaller things so that we can keep up with that. And of course, we continue to engage our building managers in making sure they monitor things, and also what's within their scope to repair, let them do that. If it's just needs a quick bolt on something to tighten something up, let those things happen. And then we develop a multi-year capital plan and apply for every and all grants that we can to help support the improvements. So this is a look at the capital budget. The capital budget is for 2 years at a time. So these are some of the major categories, some custodial equipment, information technology is in here. So it's not just, the capital budget is not just for facilities. We have the general improvements, cafeteria equipment. We always try to do energy enhancements that should bring down some of our other bills, sidewalks, capital grant. The maintenance stewards, that is maintenance stewardship. That's how it's coded in the system as stewards, but it's for stewardships. It's towards long-term repairs, things such as boilers, chillers, roof work, things that should be helping to maintain the building for much longer. This is currently what the operation of the plant looks like, what goes into that. Our custodians and management custodians, building repair, overtime, custodial overtime becomes a big thing. We are the largest community-based organization in the city, and a lot of our facilities are used by other community-based organizations. We have, at some point, we will be revisiting what the fee structure is for that, but when events happen on the weekends or late hours and there's no custodian, we do have to bring in custodial to take care of the building. So that happens throughout the year, different times the events go on, or even like the custodians gonna have to stay late tonight as they clean up at West Grant, is an example of things that go into unpredictable. And then everything else is pretty self-explanatory. And the other contractual services, that is a combination of our contracts, such as we do have a part-time custodial contract, which brings in approximately 186 to 200 staff people working part-time in our buildings to help with the maintenance of getting things cleaned daily, so that we can try to have buildings in the best condition each day. This is a general look at the SLURF, some of the SLURF investments that were made over this year. It's been, again, a lot of HVAC repairs, upgrades. State and local recovery funds. It took me a second to
I'm like, I
remember.
hope you know, because I don't know what it stands for. I was just sure.
This is part of the ARPA relief money that came through, so these were projects that were put the American Recovery, yeah, and out of the American Recovery Act for this. And so these are some of the projects that are fixing doors, fixing playgrounds, anything that we could to help make our buildings better. DHW is domestic water heaters, that's keeping water hot in buildings. PA system, bathroom repairs. And one of the things that also comes up with facilities, there's a lot of work that we have to do behind the scenes that aren't necessarily seen by us. Like, we are going to be going on the bathroom bids as we finish getting the money in to do work for that, because that's actually something our students can see and know. And they'll notice the AC when it's not working, but they won't notice the tune-ups that are done to keep it working. Those are some of the things. A lot of our work happens behind the walls. And this is just a look at what operation of the plant in comparison to some of our peer districts and some districts that have a very different funding structure. And I will conclude there unless Dr. Bowen wants to say any closing.
No, I think at this point, again, we got the team so that we can open up for questions. I'm sure you have many questions.
Okay, before I thought I saw a majority leader Furlow over there. Okay, I'll be introducing when he comes back. Just so I know, I can't say your name, so I'm going to call you Mr. S. Can you tell me what your role is and what your responsibilities are in this plan and in this operation?
So I'm, excuse me. Yeah, thank you. I'm the Director of Project Management. So essentially, I oversee more of the major expenses, repairs that are completely like water heaters, chillers, boilers, anything that is maybe a cost of $10,000 and over, versus the regular day-to-day maintenance.
And what challenges do you have?
I would say, challenges are speed to market, and that has to do with a combination of things, with lead time of equipment, with getting approvals through the process in an expeditious fashion. When an air conditioner breaks, the clock is ticking, and it's sometimes bothersome that there's not an immediate remedy sometimes. So that is a challenge for me.
Okay. Ms. Hopkins, the same question, your role and what you do and how you fit into the plan and what your challenges are. I know these two very well, so I want to hear from the staff that brought you to the table, so at least like to know what your role is in the remediation of this.
So
some of these
basically,
issues.
my role as the Director of Facilities is overseeing all facets of the Facilities Department. So anything from mobilizing our maintenance manager to dispatch tradesmen to do work, to making sure that the custodial staff has what they need, to making sure that the repairs are done, that overtime is done for summer shutdown and get schools ready for the new school year. Working with Jeff on making sure that we can push forward to identifying additional funding for us to be able to get projects done. Just a plethora of things. I wear many hats, but the goal is to make sure that all the schools have what they need and the students could come to school and be in a safe environment. That's the goal. Some of the things we struggle with, and obviously we know that, is money. Making sure that there's enough available money to get things fixed. One of our biggest challenges is the fact that there's been such a long running history of deferred maintenance because there's not enough money, right? So there are a lot of things that need to get fixed. And like Jeff said, there are a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that we have to do in order to be able to repair things. There's a process. Things have to go through the FNO. They have to be sent to procurement. They have to approve those things. We have to wait for a new fiscal year to do certain things. So there are lag times that we have to deal with in order to be able to remedy the challenges that are going on in the schools. But we get it done.
One more question for you, Ms. Hopkins, just so I'm learning as I go along.
Okay, yeah.
But the way I read your report, you had 579 emergency work orders and 209 of them left open. What would be considered an emergency work order?
Well, there's a lot of emergencies. For example, what we're dealing with right now at Wexler, I actually, before I came in, I had to dispatch the tradesmen to go and shut the water off, the domestic water off, so that we could stop the flood that was taking place in one of the classrooms. I had to have a conversation with the New Haven Fire Department because they were there and they actually turned the sprinklers off as a precaution. So we ended up dispatching an on-call vendor, Encore, to come back out, check the fire panel, turn the sprinkler system back on so that we don't have a fire watch and the kids can come to school in the morning. We also dispatched a water remediation company to come out right now. They're actually taking care of the flood in the 8 rooms that are affected. That's an emergency, and it's after hours, but we have to mobilize the on-calls to get things done. It's just one of many. No one day is the same, but there are a lot of emergencies similar to that. And then also just making sure that mechanicals are working. For example, we have the challenge right now at Fairhaven with the fire pump. It's offline, so we had to do a fire watch for it. There's been a lot of behind the scenes that Jeff has had to do to push this the way we needed to go to be able to get rid of the fire watch and to be able to repair the fire pump in a timely manner.
How long is the fire watch going on?
2 weeks, beginning first week.
No, it's been
Also,
about a month.
Been about a month.
It's been about a month.
So the fire watch means you pay somebody overtime to be there.
That's correct.
24 hours a day.
Gotcha.
But I will
I'm
say,
familiar with fire. I was at the housing authority for a while, so I get the fire watch thing.
I will say this though, I'm very frugal when it comes to spending overtime. So what I've been able to do is utilize our custodial floaters because they're not assigned to a specific school. I've been able to actually utilize them to do some of the fire watch scheduling so that we don't have to pay extra. They're working on straight time. So we try to do things like that, try to defray the cost as well.
Thank you. I'm gonna open up the questions to my committee members, our committee members. Any questions? Good, well,
I'll start.
Alder Theodore.
Thank you all for the presentation. One question I had, it sounds pretty great that teachers, administrators, a lot of people in the building can submit requests for work. Do we have kind of a holistic system or spreadsheet or website like that that is tracking all of the facilities across the public school, and checking off? I guess if there's some way that we're not just tracking issues, we are tracking the state of all things at once on some sort of website. And is that in the plans? Let me know if that question doesn't make sense. But
No, the question does make sense. That's one of the steps of moving towards the preventative, as we're pulling together all the assets, the status of what the buildings are, what our infrastructure is, what things are being repaired, so that we know how much longer each item has, how much life each thing has. So that's part of the work that's being done now.
And will there need to be another comprehensive survey like there was in 2021, 2022 for that to happen? I guess what is being done to get there?
That's the collection of the data that we have now as we repair things, putting in the dates that it was, looking at the dates as we do the inspections, looking at tags, looking at when things were last repaired, the age of things, the age of our roofs, all of those are being organized together.
Okay.
And if I may,
Yeah.
to add to that, I think the way that I understand your question is more of like a dashboard type of a tool to have a comprehensive view. And I have to be very honest, what we're trying to do right now is to bring BoE to the 21st century. A lot of what we do relies on very antiquated methods. And again, a lot of it is because, right, you have to always decide, am I going to spend the dollar on this thing or that thing? So one of the things that we have to do is, with everything that we do, is how are we going to little by little invest in those types of tools that are going to help us to do the work quicker and more efficient, because we have data right readily available to be able to diagnose, analyze, strategize, and then implement.
Dr. White, I think you answered this question, but the work orders that are being resolved now, we are keeping track of those dates and when it is resolved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are building out, because our board asks for this, response time, like how long from when open from entry to completion, true completion. So we're working on response rate reports.
Okay. Something that also came into my mind that I wanted to ask about, I know at Wilbercross there's a growing PTSO and a lot of challenges in the building. And have you all thought about, and maybe this doesn't make sense, but like some sort of volunteer coalition or students helping out and helping track these inconsistencies in the building? Because it sounds good that staff are committing their time to going around and collecting this data, but I wonder if there are it just seems like something to me that, like, I know parents at Wilbercross who would be eager to get involved with that and help out.
So a way of an additional reporting system is what you look to let us know about things that are going wrong in the building, or
some sort of way to. Sorry, maybe that's also. I'm new to this. And
no, you're on track. I just want to make sure we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I think students see things with their eyes. Parents care about this stuff and have their time. Does it always make the most sense for our limited staff members to do some of this observing that maybe the average person who's untrained can also do? I guess wanted to put that idea out there and ask, have you all thought about, when we are getting on that proactive approach, all of the different people who maybe can contribute to some of that tracking?
Honestly, have not thought about that, but again, something as we develop the system of ways for it, and the reason I mentioned another report to, again, some way that as a student observes something, they too could let people know, so that again we could work towards repairing it. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alder Tammy Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you all very much for being here and for your presentation. A couple questions. One is first about the facility conditions assessment results. Is this from 2022? The number from poor, fair, good?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Great. Do we have the current 2026 evaluation, that breakdown on poor, fair, and good?
No, because that would takes
Pretty thorough assessment?
exactly.
Okay.
So we're working from here and doing the work.
And if I'm not mistaken, that one took about a year and a half.
Yes.
Okay, to do this
Yes.
level of evaluation
Yes.
of our
And the
current facilities?
contract, the monies that were paid to engage those firms to do that level of evaluation.
Okay. Is there a way, as we establish that plan in 2022, what is our way of sort of tracking progress towards our goals between now and the next time we do a thorough assessment?
I think the best way that I see, before I mention Dr. White, let me also lay the context, right? In doing some of the research to learn a little more and bring it forward today with this opportunity, I think we learned that there have been 4, 5, maybe, people in this role, right, to support this work in like a period of, was it 7 years? 7 years, right? So there has been a lot of, I want to say turmoil in a way, right? So every time like somebody leaves, somebody then has to come, catch up on where are we, design plans, and then before they get started, they're already gone, somebody else comes back. And that's why we said we're sticking together. Our plan is not to go anywhere. But I think the way that we have been doing it now is more through that reportings where we'll put, okay, here is this particular pocket of funds. For example, as it happened with the SLURF money, to allocate and say, how many projects do we want to tackle with that money while we have it, right? Because that was additional money that came. And then looking at projects that way, but I think it's always trying to go back to the process that Dr. White mentioned, out of this long list, always prioritizing what's at the top, and as soon as a grant comes, money comes, how do we chip away? We know that that's going to take us forever to be able to do that. So I think that also part of the long-term strategy has been the effort, and I have to thank the city, that we've gone into right now to try to finally close out on school construction projects that were still in the books from like decades ago, right? Because once we're able to close out on those construction projects, that basically that's when you say, this was the entire cost of the project, this is how much back then the state said would be like, that we could reimburse, what's on the city side, all of that has to be taken care of. And we are going through that process because eventually, with the scope of the entire school portfolio and where we are now in terms of the poor, the fair list, to your point, those fair, even in 21, by the time we got the report in 23, all of those were edging on the poor range. They're very close to the poor range. To do that level of renovation that is going to be required, eventually we're going to have to start talking about bond money. You can't bond as a city before you've taken care of closing out all of those school construction projects from decades ago. So I would say that's also part of the strategy, closing out on all of those so that we know exactly where we stand in terms of what the state owes us, what we owe the state, so that we can begin to think about what is our strategy going to be, to really talk about what is the next phase in the city for the massive renovations that need to happen.
It's very helpful. I understand the challenge. There's, to your point, there's been a lot of turnover. There's imminent needs that pop up in addition to the long-term needs. The long-term needs continue to deteriorate over the course of time. The requirement of having a deep, thorough assessment in order to kind of get this level of holistic understanding. At the same time, I am curious to brainstorm, how do we assess how we're doing? What is our way of evaluating? Okay, in this particular moment in time, how's it going? And I think it sounds like there's a number of ways that we evaluate that, but just how we're tracking this holistically.
Are you being working?
Well, among the things we've been doing is evaluating our vendors. For a long time, we haven't had evaluations of that. So as an example, with the snow removal, we've had our building managers, which we discussed a couple weeks ago. Building managers are on tell us how the conditions looked outside their building, going back to our vendors about what they need to do to make sure they get those things right. And then doing this with all of our vendors, looking at their responsiveness. Like one of the things with the doors, Jeff had to keep going back to is like, we need these doors at Hill House again. Like there's one part of it of lead time, but it's also the responsiveness of, we need these yesterday, get the lead time started. So and then from there it's to reevaluate who else can we work with so that at the same time we're not held hostage to vendors. And that's where some of the standardization comes in, so that while we need a 60 by 80 door, safety rated, fire rated, we have a couple options of where to get it, and our people install it, and it works and it's safe. So those are part of the things that we'll do to look at how we're doing on that. And then also the response times that go into getting things fixed. And overall, how many of our systems worked this year. Thankfully this year, I believe we only had to do one relocation for the heat, lack of heat there. So those are the things that, unfortunately, sometimes it seems weird that's by the negative of things, but also a lot of operations goes unnoticed until it breaks down. So that's also one of the challenges. But we also want to make sure that we're to the point we're fixing things, doing the repair before it's completely breaks, when we know it's starting to fail, so that we can stay on top of it.
In Albert Tamby Smith, in the short term, I want to go back to what Dr. White mentioned earlier in terms of our work order system, right? I think you heard him mention the one that we have now is FMX. The limitations of FMX is that same issue where he said, right, it went first to you, you send it to me, you closed it, it shows complete on one side, but it's really not complete. We are going to be looking to invest in a more updated work order system, because there are, of course, more expensive, and I know last time we had to go with the cheapest, more expensive, but there are systems out there that allow you to see all of that reporting in the moment, and not only that you're able then to say, push a button and be able to say, how many are still open? How many have been completed? What was the span of time in which that work was done? So I think it's a good way to see, are we getting better in terms of the turnaround, right? But again, all of that comes in the fact that we have to invest in better tools. And this is just one of the examples as it relates to the work order system.
Thank you so much for bringing up evaluation of vendors, because on the same page, when I was thinking about that question of how we're tracking, how we're doing, evaluation of vendors came top of mind as a pillar. And I'd be curious, and this is my last question, and then would love to ask my colleagues or back to Mr. Chair, is around maybe just even walking through what that evaluation of vendors looks like. For example, to your point, Dr. White, it was concerning during the snow workshop to hear that I think it was maybe 15 to 17% of schools, the vendor that we had selected had not cleaned it to adequate quality for students to be able to have access. And so would be curious for you to walk me through, all right, that happens, that occurs. What happens next?
Well, I'll tap into Lisa a little bit on this. I'll start it in. Yes, first and foremost, it was getting on them. We need to be back here now. That's the first thing. Meeting our ground supervisor meeting, and they're going over point by point of what has to be done. And then Lisa can go into a little of the riot act that was ready to follow.
Well, yeah, basically, I think that some of the things that may have fallen through the cracks before we were able to really capture the act that we created for building managers to be able to be engaged in doing inspections of the grounds as well as take photos in real time. We were able to do something that we weren't able to do before, and that was to be able to turn around and provide Dr. White and the board with a comprehensive report of everything that did not go right and those things that did go well in real time. So we were turning around the collection of the inspections in less than 3 hours when the building managers come in the morning, which is really good. I think me, Dr. White, and our grounds person actually being out in the thick of things, like, you can only imagine how, it was a lot, right? But just
it's
staying,
beautiful at 3 a.m.
yes. Just making sure that we show up, because, you know, who would think that we would actually show up in the dead of winter at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning to make sure that they actually did the work. I think that the contractors understand now, based off of the way we're moving, is we need to have results. They get paid pretty good money to clear the buildings, and we're holding them accountable. They all receive reviews of their performances after their storms. We also make sure that we share that information with the small business associate,
Small contracts.
small contracting company as well, with a little, to make sure that we're putting them on notice, not just for things that they do bad, but if they're great accolades, they receive those as well. But that we're holding them to a higher standard, and we expect for them to do the work. For example, one of the contractors that we're dealing with now, there's enough documentation for this contracting company to possibly not get another contract next year based on poor work performance. You know, also the other piece is doing work like this gives us an opportunity to see, everything always looks good on paper, right? Everybody's got all the equipment, all the automobiles and everything that they need when they bid something. But in real time, we get to see who has what. And unfortunately, there are some that typically didn't have any of the equipment that they said they had, or the manpower. And we just want to get over the hump and be able to be more proactive and have vendors that can actually do the work. And so we're on the mark to being able to do that in real time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alder Kim, Alder Miller, Alder Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to everyone. I think you have some of the most difficult jobs in New Haven, and I have really appreciated through the years being responsive to me. I've come to you with my own very obnoxious checklists, and you have received them and walked through the buildings with me, and I really, really appreciated it. I have a couple of questions. One is about the funding gap slide compared to the plant slide. And so it looks like we're spending about $7 million, and then the plant slide says 22. I assume I'm not comparing apples to apples. Just wondered if you could help me understand the difference.
Sure. So the operation of the plant covers all aspects like gas, electricity. So the gap in maintenance is really around specifically building maintenance activity, repairing the doors, repairing ceiling tiles, those items.
So is that mixed in
Yes.
different categories here?
Yes.
Okay. And on the plant budget, the $7 million other contractual, can you give me some examples of what falls into that category?
Sure, that would be our on-call contract with Tucker Mechanical that for HVAC systems. That would also be our part-time custodial, which is the 200 people that we have working additionally, helping to clean our buildings. Any of our on-call contracts, so whether it be keys, abatement, water remediation, all of those things go into that area.
Okay, so like, I know we only have 2 plumbers, or some small number of plumbers,
Yes.
right? So would that be covered here as well, rather than under the?
Yes, like if, some of it would be, for example, we've had to do work at Salentano Observatory, and that required Rotolo mechanical coming in, has to do excavation and going into plumbing underground. So yeah, it's for when it's outside of repairs that all plumbers can do.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to just return to the point you made about contracts getting closed out. And I wondered if you could walk us through what the status really is. I know that's not on anybody here. It's something that you all inherited and we all inherited. What exactly is the status? What is the process? And how far away are we from closing out the contracts?
Closing.
The school construction contracts.
Oh.
Yeah. From over a decade ago.
I know that most recently, I think we were working, God, it's probably, we had done 3 initially that we sent to the state. Then there was one even like having to do with Worthington Hooker. I'm like, Hooker, like how many years ago was that? I think Clemente also, we just finished. There's paperwork that is going in.
For Dr. Mayo, Esoms.
So we're getting there. We are finally getting there. The other challenge that happened too, just to reiterate again, that we need to make investments in tools. Literally, because remember, there used to be a company that handled all school construction. That was a company that had all of the paperwork that capture, right, the whole process involving these school constructions. There is an extraordinary amount of documentation that has to be submitted. Literally, this took weeks of people, but it's not even their job description, that had to come in and go floor by floor at 54 Meadow to go on like a treasure hunt to try to find documents. So what it has pointed out, one, that we need better tools, and second, that we also have to have standard operating procedures that speak about if you have a company doing work, what does that process look like when you are going to close out, so that everything that really belongs to the city stays, right, in a place where it can be archived to be able to support all that. So this process was extremely tedious in nature, but there were a lot of people that were not going to give up, to say we will find everything needed, because we wanted to ensure that we have the best chances to get as much of that credit as possible.
Thank you. Just to give us a ballpark, is it 10 contracts that you're still closing out, 5 contracts, or perhaps through you?
Let me get that information to send it to you.
That would be fantastic.
So that we have concrete numbers.
Because I do think that is one
That's
of the
gonna
big
be a game
areas,
changer.
yeah, that we're facing. I also want to endorse my colleague's suggestion for C-click fix in schools. I think that's a great idea. I've been my own C-click fix in schools over the years, so it would be great to have some kind of a tool, maybe integrated with RTX or something else, FMX. I wanted to also ask about roofs in particular. So my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that roofs are like one of the systemic issues. So many of the issues we're facing with water, with damage, with all kinds, are come from the roof. So I'm wondering if you could share how many roofs do we have that need to be replaced of the 40 whatever buildings? And I know we have a few that we sent proposals back to the state, but like, is there a plan for the others, or is bonding really the only path for getting all these roofs done?
It's a mix of all of that. As we get success with applying for roofs, as soon as we're able to apply for them again, obviously a big part of that also has to do with working with the city on this because it is a reimbursement. There's the portion that the state will pay, and then there's a portion that would be a split again between the city and the board. So again, as much money as we can free up to do as many as we can. And then so that we're not just doing patchwork, that we can do full entire replacements.
Do you have the number of how many schools?
Not right in front of me.
Okay.
I can send
Would
that.
you agree that that is one of the core issues? Like if we could address the roofs across the schools, we would have a totally different.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Because again, the age of our buildings go from 27 to the youngest at 5. So all of our roofs could use some work.
Thank you. I have just one final question, if I may, Mr. Chair, which is about work orders and teachers submitting them. I was just asking around. It seems that there's not broad knowledge or capacity among all the teachers to submit work orders. So I'm wondering how is that happening throughout the district? How do teachers know? How do they access? What is the mechanism for that?
I believe what the schools do have their own procedures. A lot of times they'll refer to their admin or the building manager. They'll report to so that they could put it in, because usually the building manager could be much more specific about what the issue is. But like anything else, we can always do more education to let staff know in general this, and you can enter into this too.
Okay, but they can register on their own and enter directly without going through an administrator or building manager?
Yes, there are teachers that submit
Yeah.
work orders themselves. So,
That's great to know. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I believe there was a request by Alderman Miller. What was that request for information? So
It was for the list of open.
I have that, the school construction projects and the number of roofs.
Correct.
questions?
Thank
Alderman.
you. Thank you, Chair. I also want to thank you for being here and for all the tireless work we're all doing in what seems like sometimes an impossible task. The one thing that keeps on reverberating for me, reading all of these documents and listening to your presentation, is a question of time. That and what you said about bringing these facilities into the 21st century, and right now you're playing so much catch up with decisions made in the past. It seems like in a lot of the systems that you're setting up now is to prevent future people sitting at this table in 20, 30 years from similar mistakes. At the current rate we're going, just to dig out of the hole and sort of get to a place where you feel like you can, you're starting from zero instead of minus, how much time in the next few years do you think that would take? And then also, of course, the flip side of that is how much money. So at the rate of funding that you have now, let's say it might take 20 years. And then how much money would it take to make it next year? Some of the decisions I'm hearing is like you have to go with the cheapest vendor because of the budget limitations, but that has cost probably more money in terms of staff time, frustration, lag time, etc. Because it was an inferior product or contractor. And so to think more long-term about even these small decisions that we're making about who's going to remove snow, to what software we're using, to how we're designing all of these buildings, to the light bulbs, to sort of future-proof that in the future. So that's just.
I would like to address capital, and then I'm going to let you take over because that's the easiest one for me. So when we showed you the capital funds, so for example, well, let me talk about next year, right? Next year, I think in the proposal, we are looking to receive, is it 15? Dr. White?
I believe so, yes.
15, right? That 15 has to be split to last us 2 years. So now you're talking, right, 7.5? At the magnitude of roofs that need repair, HVAC systems that need repair, at that rate, I know I will be long retired enjoying the sun on the beach in Puerto Rico, okay, at that rate. So that's one piece. The other piece is in terms of maintenance, if you go to the document that Dr. White pointed out, there's some opportunity there to then be able to kind of speed up that process a little bit. Even if we begin to increase what we are spending on average per the square footage, right? Because right now we're spending about $1.70. So even if we prioritize in our budget a way to increase that right every year, and little by little, to be able to get the standard allotment, I think things will begin to feel a little different in terms of the overall maintenance in our schools, right? But again, all of that is coming at the mercy of the dollars that we do have, that it isn't just that we have to fund maintenance, right? Capital investments, we also have to cover the cost of what it takes to educate our children. And by the way, I just presented my proposal for the budget on Monday. So I think that's the reality that we continue to find ourselves in this city. And that is why so much work needs to happen in terms of advocacy, because it can't continue to be on the shoulders of our taxpayers. And I think that's happening. A lot of it is, it's going onto the local taxpayer. So we have to continue to advocate at the state level to see how we can bring more equity. Of course, we're going to continue to take advantage of the new programs, like for example, the DEEP grant, DEEP. For the life of me, I can't remember what it stands for right now.
Energy and environment.
But again, those are available now, that it allows even for small projects to be able to do things. So we want to take advantage of all those things as soon as the state puts it up, to see, can we bring those smaller amounts that little by little, again, we can continue to chip away at our long list of repairs that are necessary.
Right. And one of the additional grants is the DRIP. It's called
I'm
DRIP.
sorry, DRIP.
Oh, it was the DRIP you were referring to. Okay.
DEEP. I meant
DRIP.
DRIP.
So that's 1.2 million that we are going to be able to use towards our projects. In answer to the question of the future proofing, one of the things is better RFP writing when we're doing that, so that we're very specific about what expectations are, and also so that we are writing through the criteria so that they can prove that they could do the work, so that we're not stuck with just the lowest bidder. And so that when we spec out a job, they are doing things that can be replaced and repaired, or the flexibility as technologies change, that it can be repaired, or like one of the things with some of our boilers, we're moving to interchangeable pieces, so that, again, the whole boiler doesn't have to be replaced. We can take out a part and put that back in.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I have a variety of questions, and based on your presentation, that are going to go all over the place, so kind of bear with me. But the first one is, if we're looking at March 25th, 2026, and I see this whole report, would you say this has improved or regressed in terms of the state of the site conditions of the schools?
And I leave that up to Dr. White.
We are holding on because, again, we're in the reactive phase. We're fixing the most pressing things. So we're not improving, but we're holding the ground.
So we're going to maintain that we still have 31 schools that are in fair condition, 12 that are in poor condition, and 2 that are in good condition. How does that resonate with you?
Again, our goal is to make sure that all of our schools end up in that good range. We want all of our students to be in spaces like Barack Obama and in spaces like ESOLs. That's what we want. I think that's what every parent wants. I know that every member of the Board of Education, every member that works for NHPS, every teacher that works for NHPS, that's what they want. But again, I don't have a magic wand, and neither does Dr. White. We need the resources to be able to do the work. What we are committing to, as you heard, is that we are building better systems to ensure that we are all holding people accountable for every contract that goes out. And it starts with the way that those RFPs are written. So then somebody can come and say, oh yeah, somebody should do this work, and then think that you're going to clean a lot with shovels, right? That's what we're saying. We need better RFPs. How are we going out, saying, show me your equipment, show me your roster that you say you have X number of employees, show me. You can't show me that, you can't get the contract. We gotta get to the level, and we're moving towards that.
Should we anticipate any school closings due to the condition of the buildings?
As of now, I am not anticipating any school closure. Right now, as of today.
What would change that?
I don't know, I may have a massive thing where a roof collapse, right? Anything could happen. I'm also
We're
looking.
not wishing that.
No, I'm not, right? I'm also looking right now, we are facing the tough decision to say, how are we gonna close the gap of $18.8 million? When I have already closed, I have already merged schools. I've already right-sized. But as of today, closing a school for fiscal year 27 is not in the works, as of today.
Are there any schools that we should be concerned about that have issues that are not remediated as of yet? HVAC, leaking, plumbing, anything along that lines?
I'll let you share the
Yeah.
priority list right now.
Yes, we know right now, John C. Daniels, we're going to have two main chillers for that building again. We do have a plan to replace that HVAC, but again, it's just going through the process now. So by the time, with a 20-week lead time, that equipment will be coming in August. So we'd have to ensure us to take us through the end of the year, beginning of the school year, because we know that our weather in New Haven's going to still be hot at that time. That's one. Same thing with Betsy Ross. They are also on the list to get new chillers that in that same area of their systems are inconsistent. Down the line, Savantano is probably another building that is at that phase right now. For example, only 3 of the 6 boilers will work. So it's one of the things that it's managing, but those are some of the places that are in danger. We are getting money seeking money right now to replace the roof at Hill House, replace the roof at Wilbur Cross, and the roof at Truman. Also looking at, with the Truman project, also finally bringing HVAC into Truman, because that's a building that has not had a real system in many, many years. Those are some that I can name at the moment.
Are we in jeopardy with any state or federal agency that might come in and find fault with our schools, any of our schools? DEEP or OSHA or any of the above?
That's what inspections are.
That's what we do with inspections. We remediate any of the health issues that, and part of this work actually started under my predecessor, Mike Carter, there was some calls to OSHA and established working out what were issues that we worked with PMA. Those issues were addressed. And among the things that have come out of that, I hold a monthly meeting with the unions and the facility staff to go over what things in the work order that they've seen, anything that has been elevated to them as some priority, so that we can provide status updates on what's happening. And so that try to keep a clear line of communication about what's happening and being repaired.
One last question. You're at the top of the chart, Dr. Paul White. What keeps you up at night?
This being one of them, and one of the many departments that I have, keeps me up at night, making sure that buildings are safe, whether it be the HVAC, whether it be doors, making sure that each day our kids come in and have a place that they could learn and enjoy.
Committee, any further questions? Alder Redente, then Alder Tammy Smith.
Thank you, Alder. So we've heard a lot about contractors, whether it be snow or what have you. We just had the issue with the water pump at Fairhaven School. So first, I'd like to know, how does something like that happen? How do we put a water pump in backwards? Was it not being supervised? Are there clawback provisions for contractors when work isn't done properly to recoup money that's been paid out for services that weren't properly done?
It depends on how old, when the warranty on this one. So we'd have to check back to when this fire pump was originally installed and if it was still under warranty.
But the problem wasn't with the pump. What I understand, it was with the installation, right? It was put in backwards.
Yes.
So wouldn't the onus be on the contractor who put that in?
Yes, but again, but again, there's a certain, there generally is a period of time.
It's over 2 decades old. I think even more so than the fire pump being installed backwards. The actual space for that fire pump should have been much bigger than what it is. Obviously, you've been inside the space, right?
Yeah.
It should actually be a bigger space, because even if they were to turn the fire pump to the other opposite direction so that when you come in, you're able to service it, it actually would be in the way of the other portions of the pump. So you wouldn't even be able to walk through to be able to do anything in that space. So basically, the other room, it's the resource room, it's on the
Where
back
they dug
side.
the hole in the floor and went down to the basement?
No, the classroom is like a resource room right next to it on the other side.
Yeah.
Literally, they would need at least 3 more feet that they could actually take, because the fire pump is actually right on that wall. It shares a wall. If they were to open it up, then it would actually be enough for them to be able to service the fire pump correctly. So that's what we're still working on that. Spoke with the principal, Monica, about it, and she said she really had no issue in if we wanted to use additional space to be able to to turn it right side up so that we're able to service it. Because it's one thing to fix the fire pump, but we're still going to be having the same issue if something else happens. We need to be able to access it, right? So we got to change that, but it's one step at a time.
So something that came up during that process during inspection, there were some water tests that came back in the nurse's office.
So that's separate from the fire pump.
There's been some concerns over the years about the water quality in Fairhaven School. I know that we've had white water come out at times. We've had orange water come out at times. We've had science teachers trying to test the water. So there is a large concern about what's going on and the lack of knowledge throughout the school of what exactly happened. So could you talk a little bit about that so that we could bring some clarity to that?
So the nurse in the school-based health clinic did a water sample test. We don't know what products she used. And then a few days later told us that it showed some contamination. We immediately went in, shut off that water, had testing done, had another test, a professional company come out to bring the lab, do lab testing. We had the plumbers come out checking the plumbing as well. We have the water throughout the building, at the pump, at the water stations, those are on separate filters. So there was safe water, and we continue to do a test, and we even had our regional water authority come out. All results came back, 2 different tests came back negative. So one of the things, there was some recommendations for things to do around flushing the system, monthly at schools. And so we're looking into how we can go about that and timely as again, it's a recommendation. But this water comes in from it's one source that it comes in from, it's the city water. And so again, we'll continue working on best practices so that we can flush the system and can monitor it.
We talk a little bit about, like, it's not just in the school system, because we have the same issue with snow contractors throughout the city. What is your position when work's not getting done? You know, what steps would you take if you've got contractors that just aren't doing? I mean, we know that snow wasn't done properly this year. A lot of the parking lots weren't done properly. A lot of schools lost 10, 15 parking spaces. Snow wasn't removed, sidewalks weren't done. So how do you handle it?
Well, one of the clarifying parts was usually for snow removal, clearing. We did do a separate contract to have the removal, as did the city, because again, between the two storms, there was no way to put any of the storms. So moving 25 inches of snow between the two major storms so that we could open up the park. So that was a separate contractor that did that. When we have contractors not performing, it's really, the first step is getting them back on site to do work at the moments it's needed. It's beyond that, it's the documentation, and then it's ending these contracts. That's the process we're going through. We're taking all the steps that we can. With snow, it's a little tricky because the work eventually was done. So it's part of it is, okay, it wasn't done timely or the way we wanted. So there's going to be some back and forth about that. But that's where we're going to not using that service again.
I think that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple other questions. You had mentioned some of the challenges with lag times to complete work. And of course, there's a number of limiting factors that you all mentioned tonight. One being just, of course, capacity and resources. And then two, things like the complexity of sequencing work, like the lead times for purchasing. You mentioned one of the strategies that you're hoping to implement is around standardization of purchasing, so having all the same exit signs and all the same doors instead of sort of bespoke materials for every school. I'd be curious, two questions. What are some other strategies you're implementing to help to reduce lag time for work completion? Again, given those limiting factors of capacity. And two, do you track SLAs at this point, and how do you track the amount of time that it's required to complete work, obviously proportional to how significant the workload is?
I want to start with one piece and then turn it over to Dr. White as it relates to lag time. One of the things right now that we piloted is this tool called Inform K-12. And we're using it to pilot our PO system, right? Because also we hear from schools, for a PO, it takes me months to then be able to get right what I need to bring into my school. It allows to create a flow chart where it moves quicker and faster through all the processes that it needs to go through in terms of, right, is the funding there, is the alignment there, all these pieces before it actually gets to the city, on the city side. On our side, it's all, again, antiquated systems. That is also a tool that we're hoping that eventually we'll be able to bring many of the things into the similar process like that. So if as we are writing, let's say, agreements, contracts, that it can go through that flow process electronically, so that eventually everybody that needs to have eyes on it can sign up electronically. We know that it's been vetted and it gets to city quicker. So then city can turn around and do what they need to do, and then, like, yes, you're ready to go to the job. But that's part of the strategy.
And another part is bringing on more tradespeople, because having two plumbers for across our entire district, it isn't working. So adding plumbers, adding our contract carpenters so that multiple buildings can be worked on at a time. And trying as much as we always do, building cultures in our schools so that our kids help take care of things. Avoid the urge to knock down the sign or tap the sign as they're going on. Not create a people-sized hole. And though that sometimes you've walked into some of our bathrooms where there's a teenager-sized hole in the wall because they were able to do that. And so working on those things, that's another part of it. Prior to moving to this role, I helped coordinate the citywide student council. And we'd talk about the issues in the buildings, in the concerns, the bathroom, so because that, again, we talk about what our students see. And one of the things the council had talked about was how to build responsibility amongst their fellow students. And I think that's one of the things that will help the vandalism side so that we can stick to the true maintenance side of things and expanding. Those are a couple of things we're trying to do.
That makes sense. Thank you for sharing those. And right now, does FMX as a tool track how long it takes to complete a work order? And do we have a sense, again, of course, being able to track a larger job is different than something like repairing maybe a door, but do we have a sense of what our average is for some of these work orders? 60 days?
I don't have that. I don't believe I had pulled that for this. We are working on that type of report, and we can, when I pull the first one, can send that back to the committee.
And is that part of our current set of goals when we think about sort of the things that we're tracking? We're trying to go from 80 to 60 or from 60 to 30. Is that part of our sort of option set of goals right now?
The vision is that if there's a work order that goes in, that immediately it goes to the hands that it needs to go to, get it fixed. It shouldn't take 3 months to get a simple work order to be closed because the job is completed. So again, that's the vision. Can we get the tool at the same time that we are streamlining procedures electronically for all of that to happen so that people can actually see, wow, like, things are getting done quicker. And then, like, I know that Dr. White said he's going to send you that, but I believe that Dr. White's going to be able to open up FMX, go click reports and pull it. No, he's going to have to do some manual work to be able to give you the response that you need on this, because that's the way that we are operating right now, based on the tools that we have.
And also, one of the big things we're working on is also clearing out, over the last 8 months since I've taken this role, has been to really focus in on clearing out the old work orders as well, because we have things, as I walked around, principals tell me, I've had a work order for this for 3 years. And it's like, okay, let's fix that. And when we can, we've been able to get the carpenter out there the next day. So we're trying not to let work orders live in a black hole so that they just linger. We really want to bring it down to something's reported. And I don't want it to make it sound like that was reported this year. The goal is that everything reported this year is fixed this year. If it's something that is, as long as it's not like some equipment we have to order some, but again, and moving it down, we want it to be days. Ultimately, we want things fixed in days. The ultimate goal will be hours, but again, we know there are things that will go scheduled for work for tomorrow that, like today's the perfect example. Now, Wexford is the priority for things tomorrow, so.
I wanted to add this one thing to it. I think what we are doing is we're working extremely hard at changing the culture of what we expect our on-call contractors to do, but not just them, but our tradesmen and our building managers as well, so that they take ownership. Because clearly when on-call contractors come into a school, building managers see the contractors. They're usually the ones that are actually there with the contractor, walking them through to a situation that needs to be fixed or what have you. What we're doing now is we're actually adding additional language to on-call contracts to be very specific about the fact that they have to participate in our work order system. They have to actually respond to the work orders. They actually have to attach their documentation on completing things like, for example, we have even some contractors that are now beginning to attach the quotes for custodial equipment repair. And then they're actually attaching the date that they're going out to the school to fix a machine and then closing it out. So that actually helps to assist things because there are a lot of work orders in the system that are actually completed, but no one even closes them out. So that's a piece that we're holding on-call contractors more accountable in doing that. And I think that it's beginning to take shape. But the other piece is it's been really helpful to be able to sit with the union representation, Dr. White, and department heads to be able to have open discussions about updates on things and for them to actually play a pivotal role in entering work orders. And in FMX, you can actually tag people to follow a work order from start to finish. So there are a lot of things that have actually been able to assist us in bringing bigger issues to the table for more people to be involved in so we can see things through. So it's a work in progress, but we'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. White, for being able to provide our current average work order completion as well as any internal goals you have around. And obviously, to your point, 3 hours would be great, but also working towards even 5-10 days, but just seeing what our internal goals are would be very helpful. And then my last question is about sort of under the umbrella of facilities, a little bit less about maintenance, but more about access to facilities. Alder Redente and I hosted a workshop on youth sports with the youth committee. And one challenge that we heard from some coaches was access to facilities and some of the additional costs around security and custodial work. And I'd be curious just to hear from your all's perspective in your seat, just some of the challenges you navigate to make sure facilities are accessible for sports and activities, but what on your end are some of the challenges that stand in the way of our facilities being more accessible to more groups?
I'll start and then I'll let you finish. But, we know that our schools are, right, they are there for the community, right? These are places where the community can convene. The challenge right now, again, relies on if it's needed, when the request is made, who's going to incur the cost of opening that building, the custodian that's needed in the building, sometimes security is needed in the building. And that's why Dr. White mentioned earlier, we have to go back to our tiering system and take a look at it. It's been a long time since it's been looked at. And again, it's about, we want that open because it belongs to the community, but we have to talk about how to, at the very least, we break even. We're not looking to make money. This is because it belongs to the community. But at the very least, if it's gonna be open, I'm already in the hole. I can, on top of it now, pay the extra overtime, the custodian, the money that I don't have. So those are things that we wanna look at so that we can standardize that. And yes, we want our buildings open. We want kids off the street and be able to be doing something productive, and what not better way than, right, to have them in sports at night over the weekend. But again, all of these things have to be looked at to make sure that all of us, right, are in this together, given the space that we're in right now.
And also, it's just competition for the spaces. People like certain buildings to use more than others, whether the gym's in better condition or it's a more central location. And then we have people putting in permits July 1, trying to lock down gyms for the year. After school programs, some of our community partners, LEAP uses a lot of gyms space. And so it's the timing of things like that. So it ends up trying to get, people are looking for this to have use a gym, but time slotted, we may only have 7 to 9, because also at the same time, we want the building closed so it can be properly cleaned and ready for the next day. So those are the kind of challenges we'd like to be. And then the other side of it is working with our partners to make sure They are responsibly using the facilities too. Had a concern at one team meetings this week about some stuff that's been happening. So again, we reach out to our partners, talk about that, what we can with our staff about what we should be doing and making sure that it's clean. But again, trying to work together with everyone on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All in favor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for all the insights as we've continued. I have a question about the FMX contract. I'm assuming we have a multi-year agreement. When does that expire?
Don't have that off the top of my head. I'd have to look because I believe it was a 3-year.
Yeah, but it came in 20.
Yeah.
So this is the last year.
I think this might be the last year.
The upcoming year. Yeah.
Okay. I had a question about slides 12 and so the slide about expenditures per square foot versus expenditures per pupil. It seems for square footage, we are much behind the regional average. But in terms of per pupil expenditure, we're more competitive with the state average. I guess, can you explain to me the difference I'm seeing there? Are these measuring different things? And where do we fall compared to our surrounding districts?
Okay. They are measuring different things. Part of the operation of the plant, those are information that comes down from the state that gets reported into the state report. Not in Jim, where we have all this. It comes from BoA. No, it's where we report all of the test results, everything.
Oh, that's nice.
It's, excuse me. So it's been a long day. So they pull in different pieces of information that creates their per pupil rate, and then ours is based on what our budget is versus our actual square footage. So space.
Okay, so if I'm looking at the square footage, we're spending about half of what surrounding districts are spending based on your estimates.
Yes.
But per pupil, we're spending pretty close to the state average.
Also, part of that goes into the size of our, again, I'd have to check what they put into their number for that.
Okay.
To be able to make a proper comparison for that. And then also some districts we are much larger comparative in size. So Darien is a much smaller district. So the 2,400 per person. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I'm wondering if like these numbers say something about like, do we have more square footage per student or less? I don't know.
Right.
Okay.
I'd have to go into where that I get some.
I would be curious. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anybody?
First, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. Understanding that the 6 of us are just 6 of 30 that have numerous questions about how facilities are managed, how they're cared for, how they're running, how they're going to be, and how they impact the students as well as their families that come to visit your facilities. There's probably a plethora of questions we didn't ask. I'm using your word that we would probably like to follow up on, but I do know that you have, there were 3 requests for information, 1 per list of schools or projects for their closure of those construction projects. 2 was a work order completion time report, the average time for a work order to be completed. I sympathize with you because I had to create a work order system at my former employer, which was quite extensive, but we ended up with technology doing a lot of the work where your phone actually was able to, register your work order, what you did complete it, and why you didn't close it out was more accountability on the person it was assigned to. And the last one was the FMX contract expired. I do offer this though, if there is a non-monetary way the Board of Alders can help you with solving some of these facilities issues, please add that to part of the requests. One of the things I would like to suggest and maybe consider is you have students that aspire to be in the trades. There are certainly some easy work orders, toilet stoppages, sink leakage, some work that they can do or you can inspire them to do at their facilities. Just an idea to throw out there that it also will help in developing their skill set as well. So if there's no other questions, I will once again like to thank you. Oh,
I
sorry.
just want to add to your list, Mr. Chair, the list of roofs. which I
Yes,
think is
list of
really
roofs.
key. Yep.
So that's 4. Yes. With a plus of non-monetary.
Say it again.
Non-monetary.
You sure I can't convince you to balance that out a bit?
I'm sure you could. Thank you, Mr. S. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Thank you, Dr. Cron, Dr. White. We will then have some comments from the public. We will take a 4-minute bio break, 4-minute bio break before we move to the public testimony.
Thank you again for the opportunity.
4, because you gotta move fast. Well, if I said 5, you take 6.
Let me take 5.
Ms. Hopkins. Creating one for the housing authority, I'm saying, because it's all residential, but you'd be surprised what a fire does and water damage. What's the hardest thing to do, create a work order? It's
Yes, I did. Eli Stevenson.
Congrats.
Thank you so much.
Directly following this little bio break, we'll have the teachers union make a presentation and then we'll go to.
So yeah, that's it.
I know he was military.
So,
What's up, Lisa? You all right? And we have a big complicated building project we have to figure out. Food business? Yeah, you want to start? Send them. I think it's still open. I think it's closing like this week or something, so send them to me. Well, it's on, you need to, they want to use the kitchen or they want to give training?
the train.
So, yeah, so they need to register online, but it's on our social
All right,
media.
I'll do that, I'll do that. So Frank, how did everything end up with,
What happens when we deal with kids? Kids. Never is all, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
No.
I could write a book.
Lisa was my long-term substitute or something, what was that?
Oh my God. So you remember, was it during the Bonnie Pacheco days or Bonnie already?
No, Bonnie was there.
Bonnie's kid already going by
I
then?
don't know who was the principal. Lisa.
Denise Spence. That building, oh my God, that building.
we used to go there and visit your school. All right. I haven't seen you in so many years.
Really?
I remember you.
Wasn't bad.
When Ben started See Click Fix.
Yes.
And I remember you went to Yale,
Yeah.
and then you stayed and you were working at the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been years.
Well, good to
You
see
haven't,
you.
so how you have this, because I remember when you even had your baby, you came back from Haiti, you had your.
Yeah, I have 2 kids. They're 12 and 10.
Wow. Welcome back, and now you.
Thank you.
But you were all person before, weren't you?
No, I was just a busybody.
But now you, okay. Wow. Good, congratulations. Nice seeing you. All right, take care. Oh, back to it.
It is chilly cold in here. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not in hot flash time, so
Pretty hot flash.
4 minutes is up, Mr. Chair.
I'll put my hoodie back. It's cold.
Come on, Lippy. Mr. Chair.
4 minutes is up, sir.
I just said that. Yeah. This whole.
I'm the one, yeah, that all good.
Just want to play with that gavel.
We'll resume the workshop.
All just take your seats.
All alders, please be seated. Once again, I'd like to acknowledge that Majority Leader Alder Furlow is amongst us. He was out in the room earlier when we called his name. Now we'd like to have the New Haven Teachers Union come forward with their presentation.
Presentation.
Comments?
We like to call it presentation.
Good to see you.
Please state your name, your address.
Yes, Leslie Blatto, 410 Greenwich Avenue in New Haven. Jenny Graves, 22 George Street, North Haven. All right, we'll begin. So we're going to talk about 4 things this evening. We're going to talk about the role of NHFT in facilities and maintenance. We're going to talk about our priorities and concerns from our perspective as representing close to 1,800 workers in New Haven Public Schools. We're going to talk about highlights of things that are going well right now when it comes to New Haven Public Schools and our collaboration with them on facilities, as well as what we see are the areas of improvement for us moving forward. So first, just to highlight our role, our shared goals with New Haven Public Schools are making sure that our school buildings can ensure that teaching and learning can happen in the most safe way, that we can ensure our buildings are safe, welcoming, and well-maintained for all of our students and all of the staff, families, and community members who go into the schools. And then we specifically want to focus on educator retention and well-being. And there's a direct connection between educator retention and well-being and our facilities. We at NHFT see ourselves as partners with New Haven Public Schools when it comes to addressing facilities concerns. We make sure to field concerns from our members to ultimately help ensure that the buildings get the maintenance that they need. Jenny, as the Vice President of our union, takes lead on the facilities. She's going to speak more directly about day-to-day what NHFT does in partnership with New Haven Public Schools to work to address these serious facilities concerns.
Good evening. So on any given day, I'll start my day by looking in the maintenance portal to see what has already come in for the morning, what came in overnight, and then be able to follow up with our union stewards in those buildings to see if they're aware of it and what it looks like on the ground at that time. Anytime I go to visit a school, I always connect with the building administrator and the building manager to say, hey, is there anything alarming going on with facilities? Is there any ongoing work that you might need a nudge for? I'll take a walk through with the administrator and the building manager, take some pictures, and if anything needs to be followed up, I have access to the FMX portal. I can go in and either make a comment of, hey, is there an update to this? Or be able to share any updates that are in there with our members who are asking. Our members really just need information. I think the more information that people have, it lowers confusion and frustration. So we meet with our steward assembly monthly where we review updates that we've received from the facilities team about what's going on globally in the district and if there's anything coming up with major repairs or things that we know are coming down the line, we can share that with our stewards at that time. As we get phone calls a lot directly from members saying like, hey, I got this leak in my room, or hey, it's 50 degrees in my classroom. Our standard practice is always saying, have you alerted your building administrator? Can you work with your building administrator and your building manager to make sure that there's a work order into the system? Sometimes they have not done that and they've just been calling us. We'll solve that problem. So once the work order is in, they always request what the work number is, and then they give it to me and I can follow up, give them the information that they're needing. We really work to help triage things as they pop up, and bring attention to things that may have slipped through the cracks in the portal, because so many work orders do come in on any given day, and it's very hard with the skeleton crew that the facilities team is working in to really address everything in real time. So we can move on to our priorities and our concerns. The top 3 concerns that we hear from our members is usually surrounding HVAC, roofs, because that leads to leaks and mold in classrooms and in schools, and pest control issues. And so some examples of how those concerns can impact teaching and learning. Over the winter, Hill House was really suffering from heating failure. Classrooms were upper 40s, lower 50 degrees for a good period of time as the facilities team and Tucker Mechanical was working through some of those repairs. And our teachers were really concerned because kids were wearing coats and hats and gloves while they were taking their midterms, and how that really impacted grades. So we were able to, work with the facilities team to make sure that more space heaters were delivered to kind of offset some of those really cold classrooms. More recently, there was a leak at Edgewood School in one of the closets where a large amount of science supplies was destroyed. So we will work with the facilities team and the science department to identify what was ruined and what needs to be repurchased. For pest control, there are about 6 or 7 schools right now that have a rodent infestation. Alder Redente, I think that your school is one of them over at Fairhaven. So we have worked with the facilities team to ensure that like more intensive baiting gets scheduled at some of these schools. I'm doing a walkthrough at Jepson on Friday morning with the facilities team and the building manager and the building administrator to continue to identify the needs over there. And so, there's a lot of concerns with teachers there's a lot of evidence of mouse activity in my classroom every morning, and I'm needing to use Lysol wipes to wipe down student learning spaces in order so my students can come to school in a clean and safe environment. And then I think
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
So we have some additional wonderings related to playgrounds and pools. And I know I've been here speaking about pools recently, not this committee, but a different committee. But I'll start with playgrounds. We want our playgrounds to, again, be safe, accessible spaces for our children to go outside in all seasons and enjoy the recess that we know they need. And not just from a child development perspective, but from a teaching and learning perspective, children need recess to release so that they can come back in and be back engaged with the learning. But some of our playgrounds, we would add need support and need maintenance. I think there's a gray area, and maybe this is something that the alders can help us with, that at least at the onset doesn't have a cost, in that there's a gray area in some of our playgrounds. It's not clear whether they're city playgrounds or Board of Ed playgrounds, and then it becomes the scarecrow pointing in 2 directions of whose property is it to maintain. And I know, in fact, everyone working in New Haven Public Schools and everyone working in city government, whether they're on the Board of Ed side or the city side, want our playgrounds to be safe for our kids. So maybe we can get some clarity there to ensure that there's not who's in charge of this playground and get on top of that, especially as it's warming up and hopefully more kids are going outside to play during recess, before school, after school, etc. And then I think similarly, same idea for the pools. You know, we have resources in our schools that can be used to help develop the whole child. And that's making sure that our young children, children of all ages for that matter, learn how to swim. And I recognize that takes resources, but just want to make sure that gets noted here. While when it comes to schools, HVAC, roofs, and pest control are certainly our priorities. You know, we wanted to name playgrounds and pools as part of the bigger picture here. That's really important for a city like New Haven to take pride in and continue to prioritize the ongoing maintenance and opening of these spaces. It is essential that we open these spaces. And back to you.
Something else that I think Leslie and I have had conversations with the facilities team over the course of the last several years is the new state legislation around tools for schools. Connecticut General Statutes 10-220. This is a new set of requirements for the state of Connecticut that all public schools have to complete indoor air quality assessments and HVAC assessments. As of December 31st, 2025, all public schools within the state of Connecticut needed indoor air quality testing, and that needed to be done and completed and posted publicly. I think with the changeover of the facilities team this year, I think that is why we have not yet met that requirement. I know in my conversations with Dr. White and Lisa Hopkins, they're working on it now to try to figure out who those contractors will be and a plan to get that testing done. Starting in school year 26 to 27 and ending in 2030 to 2031, each year 20% of our HVACs in our buildings have to be assessed and that to be posted publicly too. So that will start for next school year. And we will continue to work with the team to make sure that, you know, we are aware of the contractors and when they're going to start doing those assessments. I have a colleague of mine that was on the Tools for Schools team in her district. I'm happy to join with these walkthroughs in our school buildings as well.
And we recognize, you know, that oftentimes state mandates are unfunded or underfunded, and that, you know, this is not blame here. This is naming the reality of state legislation that we know we want to honor, but also that we are hamstrung by the resources that we have. And just want to again applaud Dr. Negron and her team for doing the work of administrations that came prior to her in cleaning up messes that she should not have to clean up. It's incredibly frustrating to me, but I'll leave that frustration aside and just look ahead rather than looking back, because we should be able to access bonds to do improvements that we need, and we shouldn't be limited by errors of folks who didn't close out things in the past. So that is frustrating because we're seeing these mandates coming from the state. We should be able to get funds for them. We will continue to push at the state level for those funds. And I just want to again echo the statistics that were shared by Dr. White and the team. The comparisons of what the industry standard is per square foot and what we're spending, we can't keep going like this. And I particularly appreciate their presentation because it highlighted if we just brought our $1.70 per square foot up to $3 per square foot, it would be at an additional cost of $5.5 million. I'm sorry, the city of New Haven has $5.5 million. We do. We have it somewhere. And we could bring our expenditures per square foot up to the industry standard, close to what the suburbs are spending, which is $3.50. We can do that. We're celebrating the deal we just struck with Yale. Somewhere in that deal is $5.5 million so that we can get back on track with our capital expenses. This is separate from the budget that Mr. Hernandez presented at the Board of Ed last night. This is capital funds, separate from Board of Ed funds. We have to prioritize this. You walk into Hill House High School, you see leaks. immediately when you walk in. How are we telling our kids that that's okay? And I have to add, our teachers and our kids continue to feel the press of test scores, test scores, test scores. It doesn't add up. We will keep working hard and having high expectations for our staff and our students, but we need to make sure that the buildings where those high expectations are living, that those buildings have high expectations of them too, the actual infrastructure. So I believe it's possible for us to get up to that $3 per square foot. Appreciate you hearing that. It's a good pivot to what's going well.
And there are things that are going well. I have to say that the partnership and the collaboration that NHFT has with the facilities team is really great. We really feel heard. Our members are getting more information, and just the sheer responsiveness of this team specifically, led by Dr. White and Lisa Hopkins, surpasses previous teams that I've worked in the last several years, as these people have changed over time. So that is very appreciated, and we very much enjoy and respect the facilities team. We have a monthly meeting that I think Dr. White referenced with the paraeducator union president, the administrator union president, and NHFT. And we review things that are coming up, things that need to be addressed, and those are going really well too. And so going well so far as to we were now able to codify that monthly meeting in our new NHFT contract. So that will be just common practice moving forward. And our NHFT members have really built positive relationships with the custodians in 287 and the building managers, as they are really the boots on the ground in buildings to identify and submit work orders together. Which really I don't think happened previously. So we really appreciate all of the collaboration that we are experiencing surrounding the facilities in our schools.
I want to echo one thing Jenny said earlier, but I think it's important to repeat, is that, again, going back to our goal and our shared goal with the district for education, retention, and well-being, access to information, clarity, and updates lowers stress. And to be real, that helps with learning, because when cortisol is high, learning is low. When cortisol is low, learning can actually happen. And if we want to build spaces where cortisol is low and learning can happen, people need to know what's going on. When is this going to get fixed? And that is the point of putting that in our contract, those monthly meetings, so that we can have that open communication, that we build it right into our stewards meetings. Our stewards then deliver it to our members. And it's not perfect, but these systems are new, and I believe they're ultimately going to benefit the New Haven Public Schools community. But we still have work to do.
Yeah. So some areas of improvement, I think Lisa Hopkins had referenced earlier, is just the use of the FMX portal with our vendors and contractors. Sometimes a work order is put in, let's say, for a leak in a classroom. And so they send the roofer out, and the roofer comes out and they examine it and they determine that it's not a roofing issue, it's a plumbing issue. But then that work order gets closed out because they have now done their job of coming out. There's not really a lot of tagging in the plumber now, that now the plumber has to come out and address the issue. So then it's, well, I put in a work order, nobody did anything. And so like there's that frustration, and that's when I have to, make a phone call like, hey, what's going on with this leak? And they're like, oh, actually the plumber needs to come out. Let's reopen a new work order. So that's some of like the lag time that I think that you were asking about before. And I think that from hearing the presentation tonight, that some of those things are going to start to be addressed. And I think that will help that situation. I think training and expectation for our vendors and contractors to go in to provide the updates. Some vendors do that really well, where it's almost too much information. It's like, we are on the way, and then we have arrived, and we will be, here for 3 more hours. And then some, it's 2 weeks later, nothing has been put in. And I go in the system and I tag Lisa, hey Lisa, is there an update on this? this was put in 2 weeks ago and it still says pending resolution. And it's because the vendor may have gone out and is waiting on a part to be ordered or waiting on materials, but they have not put that into the system. So it appears as though it got put in and nothing happened. And then ensuring accountability, ensuring the accountability mechanisms that currently exist for efficiency are followed. So looking at contracts, and I can give you an example, like our contract right now with Modern Pest, that is our pest control contract. The contract as it's written says that they are going to provide every school with a binder that they're going to sign into. Every time that they come, they're going to come and they're going to do monthly treatments to prevent infestations. When we look at some of the binders in these schools, sometimes we're seeing that the vendor has not signed in since September, October. It's not being done consistently across all sites. And then the question is, do we have infestations right now in some buildings because they were not coming out to do the monthly maintenance? If the vendors aren't coming out to immediately greet the building managers like, hey, I'm here, I signed in, do we know that that's being, is that happening? And if we are paying for contracts that say we're going to do this so there's not an infestation, and now we have an infestation, now Modern Pest is charging us extra for a la carte services for extreme baiting. So just taking a look at some of those contracts, as I think that we're in the season of renewing contracts for the next fiscal year, and really examining of what accountability mechanisms are there in place so that we can guarantee that the work that we're paying to get done is getting done. And then I think you wanted to talk about the job pipeline.
Yep, and you spoke to this already, Alder Hogan. So it was on our list to include that we, first I'll name it, New Haven is a union town. So what are we doing to build good union jobs in our schools that aren't just educators, paras, administrators, and food service workers? We can be doing more. When we look at that list from the presentation about how many tradespeople are employed for this amount of schools, it's really quite shocking. And I'll applaud the district in their efforts for career tech education and building pipelines. Students are getting trained in biotech, students are getting trained in the health pathways. Students are, I think there's a partnership now with Electric Boat potentially. Where's the partnership with our tradespeople for our graduates, for our aspiring graduates and young adults who just graduated to apprentice with those people and build we need a new deal. We need a New Haven New Deal in our schools that are going to build good union jobs for people who want that kind of work. And we know that students want that kind of work. And I would argue it's better to have them working in the communities where they grew up, where they graduated, than going out to Electric Boat. I recognize it's a good job on Electric Boat. So some kids are going to do that, but it could be a good job right here in their community. And then they stay here and they're taxpayers here. And they have pride in taking care of the buildings that educated them, that they graduated from. I think let's think long term. Like I know we're always stuck in the short term because there's pests at Jepson, because there's this there, right? But let's get into some long term vision thinking and really build a jobs pipeline that's going to ensure that our graduates can come back and do the service that I know many of them would want to do. And it's it makes sense to me. Again, I'm going to bring up the Yale money that got celebrated. Yale should do more. They should continue to do more. And there's so much possibility in a city with that amount of resources that we could, I think we could work to build a program that would really benefit the city, our schools, our students, and the generation that's going to be here, hopefully talking about something else in 20 years, not about facilities crisis. That's all from us.
Committee, any questions, comments? Alder Miller?
Yes, I have one. Thank you for the presentation and all the work that's behind it. I wanted to ask about just the work orders and teachers, since I've heard that some teachers do not have access. What is the actual state of teacher access to this system, FMX, their ability to put in work orders and view and track and all that?
I am unaware of the scope of how many teachers have logins. I
think it's probably better if they don't. I think the system we have is pretty good, that when teachers complain to us, we say, well, ideally they should complain to their steward, our steward brings it to us, we tell the steward, talk to your principal, talk to the building manager, enter the work order. I think, we have a lot of unresolved work orders as it is. If it was open season for any teacher to enter work orders, I think it might complicate things.
Yes.
Yeah, I think.
And everybody's emergency can be subjective.
Right.
And I have access. So I have access. I can create building permits. I can create work orders. So if somebody does contact me and let's say their admin's on FMLA and their building manager's not there that day, or there's a sub who doesn't know how to put a work order in, I have access to do that so that it's not a lingering thing that's going to be a problem for the next day.
Alder Kim?
Thank you, Chair Hogan. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so, not surprised is not the word, but just heartened in the spirit of collaboration and partnership. You are working with the Board of Education and the administration to solve all these problems. I don't know of any other teacher union that are as much in the ground, like working on work orders and things like that. So it really shows your commitment to partnership. In the things that you were asking for, access to information, access to information, clarity, open communication, what granularity would you like that and what time? And is that something that I know the culture is changing and the partnership is changing, and I think that's a huge first step. But how can we do that in a way that's not so monetary? It may be some initial investment, but a new system. A new system that actually works for the issues necessary, but what would you like to see? What would NFT members want to see? And I think the public also wants to see where taxpayer dollars are going and how, and if there's anything that we can do to help. So
not monetary.
Well, no, I think it might be like, new system.
I think
like,
money's already been budgeted, right? So I think the teachers and taxpayers, on both, I think we want to see some of the questions that you all asked tonight of what is the timeline for the roofs. And I think the teacher who I continually see in her math classroom with buckets, interrupting math instruction, she wants to know when the roof is going to be fixed. And again, we come at this with a no-fault problem solving, but we gotta solve the problem because math instruction matters. We have to be real about attention and focus, and people are better able to focus when there's not a consistent drip into a trash can in a classroom. That's the reality. So I think let's be real about what the plan is. Let's share it, and it will be reassuring, even if it's not the most ideal news. It will be reassuring to be told the truth about when things are expected to be fixed. And I heard Dr. DeGrone say it's going to take a long time. But let's tell what is possible in the short term. I mean, it was helpful to hear. We're going to have portable cooling systems in some of our schools. That's good to know. I think the more that we can see both short term and long term, what's the end game is incredibly helpful. And I will say, when we were highlighting the need for information and how that lowers stress and the clarity is helpful, when we reach out to the team, they are incredibly responsive. When Jenny tags them on work orders, when we text them or call them, we get updates definitely within the day, if not within a few hours. So the immediate responsiveness is there. That's for the crisis, though. I think what we want to build out is clarity outside of just the day-to-day reaction mode.
Thank you.
And as we change seasons and we know that HVAC is going to be an issue leading into the warmer months now, perhaps updates from the facilities team to schools' SPMTs would be a good addition to the processes that we already have in place.
School planning and management team, which is an important body in each school. Every school has a school planning and management team. Sorry, I saw faces go, SPMT.
I know,
Keep going.
I live in a world of
Okay. Okay.
I'm so sorry. So the school SPMT is just the governing body of every school, and that's where decisions are made and updates are shared. So I think that if schools SPMTs know, like at Truman School right now, they are one of the schools that the roofing grant went through. They have had failing HVAC for several years. And part of the reason is they have to redo the roof before they can address the HVAC. Because if we adjust the HVAC now, it will have to be removed to do the roof and then put back, and that's very expensive. But for years, the teachers at Truman have suffered in 80, 90-degree classrooms. And I think, and the kids. And I think that being proactive with those conversations, I think would make the teachers feel like they understand that this is a problem, they're working to address it.
Another one of our shared goals is to move beyond the thing that we've all heard. That's just New Haven, that's how it is. It's not gonna change. We've heard that.
Yeah.
And I know, again, that the leadership of New Haven Public Schools and the leadership in City Hall doesn't want that to continue to be the narrative. So the only way forward is to share that information. And again, with SPMT, that's not just staff. The best functioning SPMTs have parents, community partners. So it's that is a good place for information to go.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I love your energy. Thank you so much for your presentation. Although I would never ever in any world suggest that you open up your work order process to so many people to place a work order. One, not all know how to place a work order in the proper category. Two, the last thing you want to do is your enclosure or work order report show that you had so many administrative closures because they were misplaced or not known how to close. So I wouldn't want to put that on Dr. White or Dr. Negrone at all.
We're not asking for that.
Suggesting that 15,000 work orders got placed by various teachers and others, and that they only closed 10 of them. So we love what your messaging is. Thank you so much for coming tonight. If there's no other questions, Dr.
Sorry.
Dr.
Miller.
Two questions. One is if you could just speak briefly to the impact of facilities issues on teacher retention specifically and potentially also recruitment. And then sort of going into our next agenda item, if you could share what you'd like to see from the Board of Alders and this committee in particular. So new committee, it's our first meeting of the year. A lot of energy at the table, so just wondering what you would like to see from us. But first on the retention and recruitment issue.
This is the time of year when vacancies start emerging across the region and the state, and teachers start reflecting on, am I going to start looking? And the last thing we want is a facilities issue to be the straw that broke the camel's back and have a teacher say, you know what, I'm done sweating, I'm done, with this toilet never working, and making that choice to go look elsewhere. Because we know there's going to be vacancies elsewhere. And we know our teachers love working in New Haven and make a choice to work in New Haven because of the beautiful community that it is. So we don't want there to be another reason. And I do think it is a reality. I think there are so many stressors on educators and students right now that are both from within the system and from the federal government and other levers. But I do think facilities contributes to that. So I think being proactive about it will help not cause that additional thing to potentially lead a teacher to look elsewhere. I don't think it's as big an issue with recruitment, I'll be honest. But I do think it impacts retention and well-being. The job is stressful enough, even in more ideal facility circumstances. The job is incredibly stressful. We're excited. We've been hearing a lot from our members, teachers of younger grades, and we've shared this with some of our elected officials at the state level. We're excited about working on this. The next legislative session is thinking about what we can do to really protect our younger learners and keep tech, big tech, out of the classrooms to the extent that it's possible. And that's a priority for us. And perhaps you want to do some wondering about how much is tech used and with what age children to see what the purpose behind it is. Because I'm not anti-tech all the time, but I think it is worth leaning into what is the purpose for the different technological applications that we're using in schools. And with what age groups are we using them? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If no other questions, thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Congrats on your first meeting.
Yes, yeah, thank
We will now open up for public testimony. If there's anyone that would like to speak on our first item, the authorization of the New Haven Board of Education to enter an agreement with Trifecta Ecosystems, or if anyone would like to speak on the workshop that was presented on facilities by the Department of Education. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? Is there anyone that would like to make a comment from the public?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we close the public portion.
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion has carried. We have one more workshop to discuss, which is amongst the committee to discuss potential agenda topics for this upcoming year, 2026, which we have roughly 9 months. And is there any suggestions for topics that we should discuss as a committee? Well, y'all do a lot of talking on the phone, so go ahead, Alder Tammy Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can kick us off with one idea, which maybe is a follow-up from this discussion, which is I think both Alder Redente and I named snow removal as the snow removal contractors, having very concerning performance rates, as well as I was quite alarmed to hear NHFT's testimony to the pest control challenges with the contract. And it makes me just curious to know more about, and also to Alder Miller's point, that the other contractual services is the second largest cost driver for the operation of plant budget, just behind electricity, at around a little over $7 million. And it just makes me curious if I'm not sure if this is a complete workshop topic, but something that gives us a deeper dive into our vendors, a little bit more understanding of their scope of services, and a follow-up on the accountability and understanding of the efficacy of their work, and our next steps if we see that there are gaps in their efficacy. So again, not sure if that's an entire workshop or a follow-up to this facilities conversation, but something that I'm certainly leaving this conversation really wanting to understand better. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
So noted. Alder Theodore?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I ask a question? I know we vote on some Board of Ed contracts. Is there a certain minimum amount of money or time that we get to weigh in on? Like they are agreeing to contracts with outside agencies over $100,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought all city contracts with Board of Ed in for over $100,000 that we presented to a committee of the Board of Aldermen.
Understood.
Not necessarily this committee, but to the other committee.
Something that came up for me during the presentation in January that we received from the Board of Education was outcomes at the end of kindergarten and they were explaining to us that many kindergarten teachers are receiving students who are already so behind on reading and math from pre-K. And so I think a workshop looking into the relationship between the New Haven public school system and all of the pre-K programs throughout the city, some of which are part of the New Haven public school system, some of which are private, and closing that gap and trying to understand, how are we falling so short? If I'm remembering correctly, the number was something like 25% at the end of kindergarten are where we want them to be with reading and math. And so I'm interested in that early education piece. And then we talked a lot about trades today. I think that is something we should be really proud of in New Haven in our public schools, but something that's so important and we can keep improving and learning on. So I think something about trades, especially in high schools, would be good as well.
So noted. Alder Redente.
I think we should definitely, I don't think it's a whole workshop, but definitely something that we should dig into is school climate and behavior. So much has changed around how behaviors are dealt with in the school system. And I'll give you an example. There used to be a time where if you had two classrooms side by side and one kid in one classroom was destroying that classroom, that a qualified support staff member could go in, get that child, pick that child up, carry him out of the classroom, close the door is not to disrupt the classroom. Now the protocol is to evacuate the classroom and put those 26 kids into the classroom next door. So thus disrupting not only one class, but two classes. So that's, I'd like to see where the changes have been made and where we can make more changes to improve the quality of climate in the schools. Coming from a behavior guy in the schools.
Alder Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are many things that I'm interested in hearing about. I think something important to think about in terms of using this committee's time, which is very limited, is where can we really have impact? And so there's three things that have come up recently where I think we could potentially have impact. One is around the Board of Ed budget. We just received a budget book yesterday for the first time ever. I haven't even looked through it, but I think, we did a workshop in November, December, talking about the need for a line item budget. It's great that we have it, but also the need for a working group of some kind to continually to look at the budget and do a deeper dive than there is capacity for in just one meeting of the Finance Committee every year. So I think looking at that possibility, what would be the right structure for the Board of Alders and potentially the community as well to have more engagement and be able to ask questions about the Board of Ed budget through some kind of an ongoing working group structure. The other thing out of our meeting tonight, I think roofs to me is like a really concrete, definitely pests too, but roofs like a really concrete item. We need to figure out, how do we get these old contracts resolved and have a real plan to fix all of our roofs within like 5 years. We just need to figure that out. The other thing is, behavior and early ed and all of these issues, a lot of them connect to how our schools relate to the community as a whole, and all the community resources that are out there. How do they connect with the schools, and how do families and kids in the schools connect with those resources? And the community school strategy is really the strategy for how you do that. We have two great examples in the state, in Waterbury and in Stanford, and I would be interested. We've done some experiments with it in New Haven, but they've never been sustained over a long period of time. We have the state of California is investing billions and billions to turn all of their schools into community schools. So there's a ton of amazing work happening around the country. And we have two good examples in Connecticut. And so I think it would be interesting for us to perhaps bring those folks, learn from them, perhaps go visit them and see what they can teach us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So noted.
Alder Kim, any suggestions?
I have so much to learn, so I really want to spend this time listening and learning from all parties involved, including the rest of our esteemed alders. Some questions I did have that I heard today that I'm not sure if it's whether in the purview of this committee for this year, but is, and I know a lot of parents are thinking about it, but the role of technology in the schools in a comprehensive way from soup to nuts. What kind of students and what relationship we want our New Haven students to have with technology, not to prepare them for the unknown future, but also what it's doing to their brains while they're in the classroom. There were issues, tools used during COVID because they had to be, but do we need those now? So just having, a conversation about that. Also hearing about post-secondary pathways that are diversified and really reflect something that is flexible and adaptable for an unknown future, but also reflects what our students, where they are right now and how we can have them invest back in New Haven. Not just with a New Haven promise in college, but a New Haven promise from K to 12. Also just because it's sort of been in the media lately and, but the public schools are the place where special education all goes. Our partners, in education at some other school, other types of schooling don't have to necessarily be compliant with special education laws and capacity, and that's something all different kind of learners, all different kind of bodies, and all different kind of cultures in our schools, and how can we best serve everyone, especially with needs. So those are some of my questions. Again, I don't profess to know anything right now, but I do have immense curiosity and would love to listen and learn. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here tonight. I know it took us a couple of conversations and some emails back and forth, but I'm really proud of this team and what we kind of trying to accomplish this evening with the facilities. The two things that kind of resonate for me are contracts, and that also includes transportation. I think part of the bad taste that we have in the mouth when we say sometimes the Department of Education is spending is not understanding it all. And just having a lack of responsible reporting is what I prefer to call it. We don't understand all the things. I mean, for example, I can stand on my corner and watch 10 school buses go by with less than 5 kids on it. Just understanding what that contract means. You heard that there's poor contract performance with some of the vendors. That's important as well. But also I'd like to delve into some form of the curriculum and other ways we can help the school system with having at least identifying alternative ways of trying to educate the kids. So I'm agreeing with kind of Alder Miller and her pursuit of us bringing in someone else to educate us. I will admit I am not the strongest person in education knowledge, but I'll tell you what, in the last month I've learned a lot more than I thought I would. So I thank all in our conversations for that. So what we will do is I will get with Ms. Maza, consolidate our ideas, send it out to everybody, and talk about our next meeting about bringing another workshop together. Our next April meeting, we will have the HBCU presentation from Malachi Bridges and Carlos Ezeguera to talk about 1831 college. So if there's no other comments, or I will entertain.
Just one more.
Alder Miller and Alder Theodore.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say, I think something else that would be very helpful is to find a way to better message the work that we're doing in this committee to the school system. I know it's tricky, but if we kind of can get the agendas approved earlier and get a flyer or something out and have that sent out to the school system, I think people would appreciate knowing that they have this outlet that they can come to, that we're open for public comment. And that they always have the opportunity every month that we have a meeting to come and participate and listen to the district and talk to people after the meeting, et cetera. So I know we don't have our own list, and so we would most likely be relying on the district's list. And I think just negotiating that as a standard practice would be in everybody's best interest.
Yeah, as the chair, I just learned very quickly that, just because someone says they're gonna do something, and you give them the information, they don't wanna do it. But thank you, Alder Tammy Smith, for so quickly getting our flyer, but then the challenge came of us distributing it in a timely fashion. So going forward, I'll make sure, I'll take on that responsibility. Make sure the more you tell, the more can participate. So,
Thank you.
Alder Theodore.
Just to add to that, thank you, Mr. Chair. A great point. And like getting students out here is awesome. I remember I wasn't before the education committee, but I testified in high school, and that was so meaningful to me. And I don't know, I would love to see high school, middle school, whatever students out here.
Extra credit.
Yeah, I'll talk to my brother and see if he has any ideas for the types of things people would be interested. But like, if there was a group of students, even if the student reps on the Board of Ed came today and talked about the student experience of facilities, that would be fantastic. Yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
Direct question for Majority Leader Alder Furlow. Do these education committee meetings have to be held in this chamber, or can they be held on a school facility?
You can do wherever you want.
Wow.
As long as it's properly noticed.
And to your point, it would be nice if we went on tour to a school facility and actually held the education meeting in that respective community.
Within New Haven?
Within New Haven, yeah. Now,
We've done that before.
Yeah, we've done it before.
Well, Alder Miller, you never mentioned that.
I like that idea.
No, there are some major challenges with doing it.
Okay, so,
but
well, let's think out loud about that at some point, but I would like to.
It was really hard on Misty, let's just put that. But it's worth trying.
Okay.
The other thing I'll just add, if I may, is I think just visiting the schools is like, there's no
Walters.
substitute for just visiting, making sure that the school's in your district. I know a lot of us do that a lot, but maybe visiting a school outside your district, maybe we try to visit a third of the schools, the first year, and even just go as a committee and invite other alders to come when we're visiting the schools in their wards, just to see. I mean, this whole situation at Truman, I've heard about it. I haven't actually been over and seen what it's like, but I think to see and feel and have to put your coat on, all that, I think it would be useful for all
So
of us.
just be mindful that if we are going to do a group tour, we have to notice it and properly let folks know we're coming, because there'll be more four of us going out, and that is properly and duly noted. So with that, I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I'm sorry.
I got it. Motion to discharge the first item to committee, out of committee.
Yeah, we have to read that. We have to
Redefine the second one, right?
get the second two.
Waiting for clarity now.
We're discharging the first one.
No, you can just, no
Just
action
adjourn.
on
No
all.
action.
So motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chair, motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Motion carries. We are now adjourned. I knew there was no action.
I thought we had discharge.
Who has the gavel?
Listen.
Oh, they were just, you just did them. They didn't, okay, you're right.
He's always right.
They were not.
Tell him this. I'm always right.
It was just
Shake your
there.
head when you say it. I'm always right.
I'm still sitting here. Mitch went out.
Thank you, Misty.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Miss, you are?
Jury, I'm a reporter with the New Haven Independent.
Okay, nice to meet you.
And you can.
Do you have anything you'd like to add for us?
Um,
Any suggestions?
thought that was great. So I think you're all great. I would love to cover you guys visiting the school. I think that would be fun.
This is our first meeting as a committee, so I'm glad you were able to make it, and thank you.
You're on the education committee.
Thank you so much. Great to meet you.
You as well.
Thank you so much. Then it gets on the agenda and then it's more, there's more visibility. So,
Okay. Sometimes it's those things.
When we want to meet you at the GOAT again, catch up on things.
Let's do it soon.
After Easter, I got my schedule opens up a little bit more.
Okay. Let's do a goat lunch.